Breath of the Wild's Zonai are described as having been a tribe of strong magic wielders who vanished suddenly thousands of years ago. They leave behind only ruins, stone walls, temples, mazes and statues of boars, owls, and most prominently, dragons. Most theories about the Zonai, mine included, tend to look at them as if they were a force of good, mainly due to their apparent collaboration with the ancient Sheikah. The Zonai ruins are found not only in Faron but all over Hyrule. However, all of them seem to share only one purpose: present a trial to Link and reward him with a Sheikah shrine. The monks are aware of this, as they most often offer blessing shrines, meaning they know that the trial is already complete. This apparent relationship between the Zonai and Sheikah is present every time. Place the orbs on the pedestals in the Thundra Plateau and the Typhlo ruins, or reach the centre of the labyrinths, all just to reveal a shrine. And now, of course, in Breath of the Wild's sequel's trailer, we can see strange connections between the Zonai and Ganondorf's reanimated corpse. An ornate entrance bearing Zonai markings with a statue of a horned beast above the doorway, cave paintings depicting what looks to be Ganondorf riding into battle, drawn in a style that would fit the work of the Zonai. Even this strange inverted pyramid found above the Gerudo King's body appears to have been built by them. So, a popular theory is, did the Zonai help seal Ganon in this tomb, deep below Hyrule? Was this tribe responsible for imprisoning the Demon King in an apparently agonizing ritual? I've been looking into it recently, and I don't think this is the case. I even think almost everything I've talked about in the past regarding the Zonai is wrong, and that there's an obvious answer that I've completely overlooked. So today, together with Monster Maze, let's look at why.
The Zonai ruins were added to Breath of the Wild for the sole purpose of creating a mystery. In fact, even their name is a take on Nazo, meaning mystery in Japanese. The ruins appear to be influenced heavily by the Aztecs and Mayans. In particular, statues of serpentine deities which were revered throughout Mesoamerica appear to be the inspiration for the huge amount of Zonai statues depicting a similar thing. In universe, this is theorized to represent one of Hyrule's dragons, the Servants of the Springs, legendary deities who take on the form of flying serpents. The barbarian outfit shows that the Zonai were a primitive people, based mostly in the Faron region, an area which Farash frequently flies through. An ancient, impressionable tribe living literally in the shadow of a dragon, it makes sense for such a being to be featured so heavily in their stonework. Members of the Zonai tribe, or perhaps just their pure of heart children, would have seen Farash and worshipped it as a god. While primitive, the Zonai were magical, and we might get a glimpse at their magic in the sequel's second trailer. Link uses a Zonai-style dragon's head attached to a shield as a flamethrower, which glows the same tail color as the Palmyra monument, and of course Link's hand possibly powered by the same magic as well. There's not a lot of evidence to suggest that the Zonai were an exceptionally advanced society. Even the name Barbarian Set depicts the tribe as feral, supported by creating a champion, which mentions that they were remembered as quote-unquote savage.
Speaking of the barbarian outfit, it tells us a lot about the Zonai. The set, earned from Zonai labyrinths, is said to have been worn by the warriors of an ancient warlike tribe from the Faron region. The set offers relatively average defense, as it's made from simple hide, fur and bones, but the war paint bolsters the wearer's fighting spirit, buffing attack and reducing stamina drain on charged swings. It's armor designed for a feral, primitive warrior who favors raw power, but it does have some magical properties as its traditional markings do increase the wearer's strength. Except for their connection with the Sheikah, and their apparent involvement with what looks like the sealing of Ganondorf, there isn't a lot to the idea that the Zonai were anything more than a primal, early civilization. But just exactly how old are they?
It's obvious from their ruins that the Zonai haven't been around for a long time. Creating a Champion mentions that the intention was to show fragments of a civilization that had collapsed long ago, and it's safe to say that they predate almost all other ruins found in Hyrule, with the likely exception of the ancient Hylian structures which were built near the time of Skyward Sword. The barbarian outfit's crude design would support the idea that the Zonai are incredibly ancient, as it is by far the least advanced armor in the game, resembling more of what a Bokoblin would wear rather than a Hylian. However, one thing we know for certain about the Zonai is that they were involved in some way with Ganondorf himself. Not the Calamity, but the Gerudo King, who can be seen depicted in cave paintings in the first trailer. The central figure wears armor decorated with 2 Gerudo symbols, and rides on horseback brandishing a trident, obviously a weapon favored by the Gerudo, but also famously used by Ganondorf. The cave paintings are most likely Zonai in origin. The art style makes use of many spirals, a trademark of the tribe. Not only this, but whatever strange magic Ganondorf is involved in these caves appears to be somewhat related to the Zonai. The inverted pyramid on the ceiling that the green energy coils around shows signs of their architecture. Whatever is happening to Ganondorf here, it appears that the Zonai were involved, which makes them almost incomprehensibly ancient.
By the time of Breath of the Wild, Ganon has been the Calamity since time immemorial, a feral beast that strikes without warning. Impa notes that this evil has been turned back time and time again by a warrior wielding the soul of a hero and a princess who carries the blood of the goddess, and that, with the passage of time, each conflict with Ganon faded into legend. We only know of 2 calamities. The one that happened 10,000 years ago, recorded in this tapestry where the divine beasts and guardians helped to seal it, and the calamity 100 years ago, where Ganon took control of these same machines and used them to lay waste to the kingdom. We don't know for how long calamities have been happening, but for this pattern to have been recognised time and time again, for many conflicts with this beast to have faded into legend, it's possible that Hyrule has been plagued with this curse for many tens of thousands of years. No matter how many times the calamity is defeated, it returns anew, in a cycle without end. I've theorised before that this is because Calamity Ganon itself is little more than a puppet. The entire calamity seen during Breath of the Wild is built from one thing: malice and malice alone. Ganon's minions, the Blood Moons, the corrupted guardians, the blights, even Dark Beast Ganon itself are all just forms of malice. But now we've seen what appears to be the source of this malice, Ganondorf's physical body.
The reason that the Calamity, which returns time and time again, can never truly be destroyed could be that it's simply a puppet controlled by Ganondorf himself. Even eradicating Dark Beast Ganon with what appears to be the power of the Triforce isn't enough. If Ganondorf remains alive in this cave, as he has been for tens of thousands of years, his malice will return. Ganondorf's origins as a Gerudo are all but forgotten to Hyrule. King Rhoam mentions that Ganon was born into the kingdom, but transformed into malice, creating the horror seen today. And Urbosa notes that it was written that it once adopted the form of a Gerudo, but by now the details of the birth of the Calamity have faded into myth. The age of the Calamity itself gives us an idea just how old the Zonai tribe is. Hyrule has been stuck in a cycle of ruins for eons, but the Zonai may have been there from the very beginning, back when Ganondorf rode on horseback and waged war as a Gerudo king. Even if the Calamity 10,000 years ago was the first, which doesn't appear to be the case, this still dates the Zonai back to at least this point in time, and probably long before, as they were involved in some way with Ganondorf's body, a secret not even the ancient clairvoyant Sheikah monks seem to be aware of. Zonai ruins do often seem to be closely connected to the Sheikah shrines, supporting the theories that either the 2 tribes worked together in some way, or that the Zonai worshipped Sheikah relics and built settlements and mazes around them. However, it would have been almost completely impossible for the Lome Labyrinth Island shrine to exist before its labyrinth, which is found far out into the sea. It's entirely possible that the ruins existed before the shrines were constructed, and their monks simply used existing structures in Hyrule as trials for the future hero. The true age of the Zonai tribe is hard to pinpoint, simply due to how time has eroded the details of the history of the Calamity. However, it's clear that the tribe is at least 10,000 years old, and likely far, far older than that.
So the Zonai were most likely around before the calamities began, before Ganondorf was sealed or imprisoned underground. But strangely, the Zonai architecture seen in the first trailer instead seems to honour Ganondorf rather than villainize him. The cave painting doesn't depict him on his knees, imprisoned or defeated. It shows him riding into battle, holding his trident in the air, proudly displaying the emblem of his people. And the image of a face with two horns, a snout and grinning teeth can not only be seen above this doorway, but also all along the bridge in this shot here. This is a new Zonai carving, not seen anywhere else, and it's possible that it could be a primitive depiction of Ganon itself. It seems as if this entire place is dedicated to Ganondorf, built in his honour by the Zonai. Even the Zonai's trademark symbol, a spiral, bears some similarities to the way in which the energy around Ganondorf moves. If this is the case, could it be that Ganondorf isn't sealed here against his will, but by his own choice? Clearly, whatever is happening here, however torturous it appears to be for Ganondorf, allows him to unleash huge amounts of malice, enough to bring kingdoms to ruin on the surface. Could Ganondorf's master plan have been to seal his physical body away and fight instead, forever, with malice? Ganondorf isn't bent backwards over a pedestal like I first thought. He's seemingly frozen in place, in the exact same position seen in this flashback. The Zonai were a savage tribe, but as we can see, they appear to have built Ganon a temple within which to seal himself, and may have rode with him to battle on horseback, as we see him surrounded by other mounted warriors, the patterns on which match closely with the patterns on the Zonai bridge. The Zonai designs found throughout the caves are somewhat reminiscent of Ganon's various lairs throughout the series. In A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time and The Wind Waker, which always feature skulls, statues or carvings of himself or a similarly intimidating beast. It seems less like this place was built to imprison Ganon and more like it was built at his request. Knowing the Zonai's connection to Ganondorf, we see the barbarian outfit in a different light. Its effect, raising the wearer's attack strength, fits Ganon's signature attribute of power, and the helmet in particular bears an uncanny resemblance to him. The helmet is a skull, humanoid in shape but sporting fangs and curved horns, which notably includes long, flaming red hair, somewhat similar to Ganondorf's long red hair in the sequel trailer. If the Zonai, an ancient, savage, warlike warrior clan who valued strength, were aware of and interacted with Ganondorf, then might the Zonai have worshipped him, like they did with other magical beings such as Farosh? Might the barbarian helmet in fact be depicting a being that the tribe worshipped as a god, Ganon? This wouldn't be the first time that Ganondorf was followed by a primitive warrior tribe because of his strength. Twilight Princess's King Bulblin reveals that his people follow the strongest side, choosing to help Link instead at the end of the game after he's bested in combat. In the same game, he manipulated another race of people through his control of Zant, who he had convinced that he was a god. In fact, even to his own people, the Gerudo, Ganondorf is not only followed as a king, but as a god. Based on what we've seen in the sequel trailer, I think it's very possible that the Zonai were in a similar position.
But there's a twist. According to Creating a Champion, the Zonai vanished suddenly thousands of years ago, an event which is considered one of Hyrule's greatest mysteries. The Zonai were a prehistoric, warlike tribe. It's entirely possible that they were destroyed in some conflict, wiped out by a more advanced, stronger people like many ancient civilizations in our world. But this wouldn't really fit the description of vanishing suddenly. Perhaps then the Zonai were banished, like the Twilight when they attempted to take the Triforce during the Interloper War, or instead they left their homes to ascend to the heavens like the Minish Cap's Wind Tribe. But I think there's a more obvious answer for the disappearance of the Zonai.
Ganon doesn't have a great track record when it comes to caring for his followers. A Link to the Past's manual explains that, alongside a gang of thieves skilled in the black arts, he gained access to the Sacred Realm. Ganondorf, being Ganondorf, then proceeded to kill every one of his followers, to take the Triforce for himself with blood-stained hands. By housing his power in Zant, Ganondorf transforms the peaceful Twilight into living weapons, the Shadow Beasts to use as foot soldiers in the invasion of Hyrule. And, most recently, Age of Calamity's Ganon slaughters his loyal Yiga clansmen, harvesting their souls to empower itself and revive its Blight Ganons, an act so heinous that it caused Koga and Suga to rebel against him. So it's possible that the Zonai met a more sinister end. The tribe were obviously involved in some way with Ganondorf's body, so perhaps their disappearance was caused by a man they worshipped as a god.
We can even go a step further here. Remember the first trailer's focus on spirits? Not only the green-blue energy, which matches the same energy surrounding the spirits of Breath of the Wild's champions and King Rhoam, but also the abundance of Luminous Stones, a rare gem which glows a pale blue-green color at night, believed to contain the souls of the dead. Upon completing their trial and awarding Link a spirit orb, Sheikah monks will vanish, fading away into particles that is the same green-blue energy, which is also seen throughout the series to represent spirits, such as in Twilight Princess. Breath of the Wild's Lord of the Mountain, said to be the incarnation of an ancient sage, also glows with this light and also appears when Link uses champion abilities, powers given to him by spirits. So the green-blue energy seen spiraling out from Ganondorf is most likely spirit energy. But whose spirit? What if the Zonai weren't just slain by Ganondorf, but now linger as incorporeal spirits trapped underground with their god? Perhaps the Luminous Stones which litter the caves shine bright with the souls of the Zonai, and maybe the spectral hand that pierces Ganondorf's chest is made up of this lost tribe's spirits.
It doesn't seem like the Zonai were truly evil. They were certainly powerful, primitive and warlike, savage warriors from the woods who conquered much of Hyrule, leaving behind their strange stone ruins. But they probably weren't evil, just like King Bulblin, a feral warlord who simply follows the strongest side. Though, unlike Farosh, a true deity worshipped by the Zonai, Ganondorf was a false god, a man who manipulates and uses people for his own gain, especially those who worship and revere him. And like many before them, the Zonai may have been ruthlessly slaughtered once their purpose was fulfilled, from an outsider's perspective, appearing to vanish without a trace. In fact, it's possible, though not confirmed by any means, that the audio of the first trailer hides a hidden message when played in reverse. I'm usually pretty cynical when it comes to these sorts of hidden details when reversing audio, but there's a great video on Nintendo Black Crisis' channel analysing what sounds like a voice.
This could just be nothing, an example of the Mondegreen effect, but it does sound like a whisper crying for help. We're not going to put too much stock into this as a fundamental piece of evidence to build a theory on, but if true, it definitely supports the idea that the Zonai were somehow trapped down there, forever lost as spirits. But this all begs the question, why? Why would Ganondorf have had a Zonai-built temple, presumably deep below Hyrule Castle? Why might he have butchered his followers and endured some agonizing ritual? It's possible that Ganondorf engineered everything, sealing himself for countless centuries in order to become something more than mortal. Refusing to give up on an endless cycle of reincarnation, might Ganondorf have deliberately used the Zonai to become a being resembling a lich? A lich, from the Old English word for corpse, is a creature born from a deliberate ritual, where a powerful sorcerer undergoes a magical process to become undead. Liches are famously almost impossible to kill. Even if their physical form is destroyed, their spirit can live on, and they often command legions of spirits or other undead creatures. Ganondorf's corpse-like body doesn't look like it was imprisoned like in Twilight Princess, where the Gerudo was chained to a rock by thick steel manacles. Instead, it looks like it was involved in a ritual. He has odd, perfectly circular holes in his hands, wrist and chest, and wears simple tattered robes and jewelry, all inside what looks like a temple devoted to him.
It's possible that Ganondorf wasn't sealed, that the King of Evil outplayed everyone, fooling Hyrule, even the godlike ancient Sheikah, into believing that the Calamity was his true form, while really he laid in wait, hidden deep below the ground. For millennia, Ganondorf, as he often is, has been one step ahead.
For more on Ganondorf's master plan and what exactly becoming a lich could mean for the Demon King, check out the second part of this collab over on my channel, Monster Maze.
If you like this video, leave a like and let me know down in the comments what your thoughts on the Zonai are. Were they benevolent, responsible for sealing Ganondorf, or were they a clan of savage warriors manipulated into servitude by the King of Evil? Thanks so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Monster Maze, who this theory would not have been possible without. Be sure to go check out the counterpart theory over on his channel. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.